Hi, I'm Carla Schaefer, Auntie's Beads designer, and I will be demonstrating a 3-in-1 bracelet, which is 3 strands brought into one. The materials needed for this project are as follows. You'll need two 6mm spacer beads, and this is a bead with a large hole. I'm going to be using a 3-stranded sunflower separator. I'm also going to be using a toggle, and I'm also going to be using a 4mm sterling silver flat Bally bead. And for the crystal, I'm going to be using the Auntie's Beads Valentine mix in a 4mm and a 6mm, and those come in bags of 48s, and you will need the majority of them. For tools, you will need a magical crimp forming tool in the .014 to .015. You will also need a nipper tool and chain nose pliers. And for wire, I'm going to be using a soft flex .014 21 strand. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my wire to 10 to 12 inches, and I want 3 pieces. So I've already cut the wire. And then what we're going to do, and I did forget to mention in the list of materials that you'll need 4 crimp beads. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to line up these three ends of the wire, and I'm going to put 1 crimp bead over all 3 wires, and I may have to do, 2 and 1 at a time here. And then what I want them to do is I want them all to lay parallel to each other. And then we're going to flat crimp these wires using the chain nose pliers. So I've got them on, and you can leave some excess here. That's why we have extra wire. And I want it to be flat. And all I'm going to do, take this flat crimp, and then we're just going to give it a little haircut, and we're going to trim those edges off flush to the crimp bead. And this is going to be the 3 strands that we're going to be working with. Okay, we're going to be working all 3 strands at the same time. And in this case, I've already have the pattern predetermined. And if you decide to do different beads, different sizes, different colors, what have you, that is the fun part about designing this bracelet, is making sure everything fits and lines up the right way, since we're using the separators. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work your 2 outside strands will always be the same. And then the middle strand is different. And I like using mixes because I don't mind random patterns, and I know some people don't quite like that, but that's how I like to use things. So I'm just going to string a couple of beads on a strand at a time. You can do however you're most comfortable with this. So first thing I did on the outside strand was a 4mm, a 6mm, and a 4mm. Now I'm going to put 3 4mm on the middle strand. And then again, I'm going to repeat that outside pattern on the outside thread. Just 1 4mm, a 6mm, and a 4mm. The only thing I do when I do a mix or random beads is I try not to put the same colors next to each other, but basically that's the only pattern I give it. Okay, and see, this is how it starts to look. And then I'm going to add a little Bally spacer and more crystals. Okay, I've got this first section. Basically, we're doing this middle part in 3 sections, and I've got the first section done, and then the third section will also be done in the same pattern. And now what I'm going to do is I'm slip on a separator, and as you can see, that as I was talking about using separators, you really have to watch your spacing and placement of beads. So, I've used 2 beads here, yet 3 beads here in the middle strand, so that's just all part of using the separators. So I'm going to take I'm going to line my threads up here. I'm going to take the outside thread and slip it through the separator, and in the middle. And what the separators really do, other than keeping the work all together, is they just kind of, especially when you're doing something like this, you don't need that many of them, but they'll just kind of hold everything in place. And then slide it down. And then I'm going to go ahead and work my middle section. Okay, I've completed the second section, put on an extra separator, the last separator, and then I also went ahead and did the third section, which, as I said, was the same as the first section. We will give you a close-up shot so you can see the pattern that I've done for the whole bracelet. But now what we're going to do, now that we're on the end here, is I'm going to add another crimp bead to all three of these strands, just as we did in the beginning. So I'm just going to take the ends together and slip on a crimp. But I still want my threads to line up, or be parallel to each other, and as much as possible when you get down here. And you just want to tighten it up a little bit. And then you want it to be as close as the beads as possible. Take your chain nose pliers, and again we're going to flat crimp this. I'm going to trim the wires flush with the crimp bead. And then we're going to use we're going to use 2 pieces of this wire, so just set them aside. And so this is what we've got. We've got a little 3-section piece here. And I think I beaded this probably 4 1/4 inches. If you wanted to bead this longer, then the end pieces that we're going to do would be just a little shorter. But in my case, to make a 7.5 inch bracelet, I did 4 1/4 of the middle section. So, and then I'm going to show you how to complete the bracelet. Okay, now the trick to doing this 3 into 1 strand is this right here. So I'm taking one of the extra pieces of wire that we trimmed from the end, and I'm going to just take the wire and run it through in between the strands. So I've got 2 on one side and 1 on another, and I'm going to bring them up together. I'm just going to pull them till they're right here by the crimp. And then what we're going to do is take our spacer bead, and the reason why I'm using a spacer bead is because it has a large hole and it's going to go over our crimp bead, so it's going to conceal the crimp bead. We're going to slip that on, see how it covers the crimp, and then we're going to bead over both wires the remainder of our bracelet. So I'm going to string on a 6mm bead, and I'm going to put them over both wires. And you can do any pattern you want here. I'm doing a 6mm, a flat bally, 6mm, a 4mm, and you have just enough 4mm to complete this. You will have some extra 6mm. And 6, 4mm. Well, flat belly, and then a 4mm, and then the last 4mm. And then all we're going to do is we're going to crimp this half of the bracelet into half of the toggle. Okay, now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take these wires and run both wires through a crimp tube, through half of my toggle, back through the crimp tube, and I like to run it through a couple of beads to hide these wires, so I'm going to run it through. And since we're using a 21 strand, we should have no problem getting them through, even double. And then we're going to pull and tighten that. And then we're going to crimp with the magical crimp forming tool. Again, you just put it till it creates a ravioli. And you continue around until it makes a round bead out of the crimp. Nice and clean, and then we're going to trim our wires with the nipper tool. And then we're going to repeat this process for the other end of the bracelet. Okay, all I did was just do the same process as I did with this end for the other end of the bracelet, and now we have 3 strands that came down into 1 strand into your toggle, and you have now completed your bracelet. Hi, I'm Carla Schaefer, Auntie's Beads Designer, and I'd like to invite you to check out the Learning Center on our website for design ideas and jewelry making projects and other Carla Cam videos.